Danny, your favorite goober, and a not so quick update for you today. I'm gonna yap about my manga. So, a couple days ago, I mentioned that I came up with something that I was really happy with, and it involves one of my elements, one of my primordial elements, and it was a pretty big breakthrough. It added that extra little, it was that secret sauce that I felt like I was missing. Um, and I'll get into a little more detail. This, though, I made this little Minecraft world to act as like a visual representation of my ideas to kind of help you follow along, hopefully, instead of me just like sitting at a bench in Silk Song yapping to you. So I've got this here to act as a lovely little visual representation. Now, this side of the wall is everything before I had my big idea. On the other side is what we'll get to, which is post big idea. That's where I'm at right now. So, just for a little bit of context, I have never made a manga before. I've never written a story before. This is my first time doing that. So, this will be fun. But a little more about the story itself. As you can see, it is an elemental story. The four that you would totally expect to see, earth, wind, fire, and water, all these bad boys. And then my story actually has two more elements. In universe, they're brand new. They're baby elements. So they're underdeveloped for that reason because they're not supposed to be fully understood or fleshed out. There hasn't been a special weapon crafted to hone these weapon or these elements in. There's no deity associated with them. Uh, they're very raw. They're brand new. Um, I plan on expanding on that later into the story, maybe. But for now, like they're just supposed to be kind of baby elements, so I haven't put a lot of focus into them in that regard. But for these are the primordial elements, and so primordial elements basically just means they've been around for a while, right? If these two, electricity and gravity, haven't been around for very long, considering they're brand spanking new to the universe, um, like they're non-primordial. But these bad boys have been around for a long time, so humans can control these elements, and they've been controlling these elements for a super duper long time. And they also have deities associated with each of them, right? So we have the moon deity, the sun deity, the blank deity. We'll get to that. And then we have, well, in this moment, it was undeveloped. I didn't really know. It was just the wind deity, right? But now there's a true aspect to this deity. And then this was just the earth deity. So she was kind of like Mother Nature. That's kind of the vibe I've given her. But you might have noticed as I'm hovering over all these, there's two different things. There is the main element on the left, and then there's the alternate to the element. The alt isn't its own unique thing. It's just the same element, but it's just a different kind of like power within it. I knew that I didn't want to just have water, just have fire, just have air, just have earth. I wanted to expand on that a little bit. So water, to me, a little lazy, but I feel like it makes sense. A lot of people have ice as its own element. I've roped it into water. However, any water user can learn to manipulate uh, and control ice, and any ice user can learn to manipulate water, right? It, alternates, I should also mention, are more rare, right? An ice user is more rare than a water because it's just naturally the water element. So it's going to be more of an exciting moment to figure out your kid is an ice user. Like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But anybody can learn to use it. It's an all-encompassing, and that goes for the other elements too, technically. But it's like really, really, really difficult if you're not born with it, right? Especially down here, right? Earth. This is your dirt, your metal, your clay, uh, right? And as difficult as metal would be to manipulate, because unlike Avatar, The Last Airbender, everybody has the opportunity to learn how to manipulate like metals and shit. However, excuse my language, first time I cussed today for a video. I'm surprised. Wow, Kept it relatively clean today. That was my first cuss. Oh well, we're leaving it in. All natural. Earth, right? It's that dirt, those rocks, stones, the metal, right? Crystals, all that fun stuff. But like metal, it's just difficult to manipulate. It's really, really tough. It's a skill level. It's not just like oh, you're a metal bender. No, it's a skill that you can acquire. Uh, but for its alternate, it's nature, which to me includes plants of all kinds, right? You've got, if you can think of it, you know, from your basic little flower, little weed, whatever, to your gigantic redwood trees, right? All that. I'm also roping in fungi, fungus. Um, I feel like it just makes sense, even though technically speaking, fungus is mm, closer to being related to animals than it is to plants. But we're going to ignore that because fungus just sounds right. Just sounds right. All right? Just sounds right. Just works. Fire, as you can see, work in progress. Its alt is radiation. Now, these two, if you didn't know, oh, I haven't mentioned them yet. Electricity, magnetism, gravity, and none. So gravity is just gravity. I've been considering making fire just fire. It'd make it a relatively basic element, but fire is still kind of cool. A lot of creativity that I can have with it, I'm pretty sure. I haven't done my research yet. I need to be inspired for fire, especially after what I've come up with for the air element. But fire, my idea was radiation, right? Heat is a form of radiation, and I wanted to expand upon that. And so I was thinking for the alt, I would look into radiation. There's a bunch of different kinds of radiation. I haven't done my full research yet, let alone trying to figure out how to turn radiation into a fun power idea for characters to use, right? I just don't have an answer for that. It is cool that there's different kinds of radiation, so I'll have to see if I can, like any of those. If not, fire is this close, frankly, to being another um, solo element, but not yet. And then for air, it's just air, right? You can manipulate air. I wasn't satisfied with that, but I was satisfied with its alt, which was sound, because sound is just vibrations in the air. And so naturally, I feel like if you could master that, you could master a lot. You can be very sneaky, mimic people. I don't know. I think it could be fun. I think sound is a very fun alternate. And then air was just air, and I was in the same boat for fire. I didn't have a lot of creativity that I could think of for powers and stuff. And I haven't done my research. I haven't looked into things to inspire me for this. But I knew that I was missing some sort of sauce, and I came to fix that. I briefly glossed over these though, golden weapons and their spirits. Um, just know that these weapons were forged with a special metal, yada yada. But it's really, really important to understand that for a long time, the very concept of like these animals that are like spiritually tied to these weapons, like if not like the weapons themselves are literally like the spirits of these animals are the weapons, like that kind of deal, like something like that. The general idea that these weapons are tied to spirits, these spiritual animals that existed for a lot longer than the concept for the spirit and soul. But I will get to that in a second here. The non primordial elements, you already seen them. It's electricity. Its alternate is magnetism. And then I mentioned that gravity doesn't have an alternate. These are baby, these are brand new. They don't have a weapon associated with them, they don't have a deity associated with them. They're brand spanking new elements. So, yeah, how long have I been going for? 9 minutes. Nice. All right. Better time than last time. Here's where it gets a little quieter or quicker. Incomplete ideas and powers. All this. So, first things first, natural energy. It's a work in progress name. This is effectively my um, moment here. Sorry. Yeah, it's effectively my like ki, my nen, my chakra, that kind of stuff, right? This is a work in progress name. The idea, the concept of natural energy as a description makes sense, but I haven't necessarily named it, right? Basically, you use natural energy and you can use that to empower yourself, and that's how you use the. It's your mana, all right? However, you can use this and literally out of thin air create different materials. Like a metal is going to take a lot more than a stone, a basic stone. But that's like, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of wanted to mention that, I guess. I didn't mention that last time. Just kind of something to make a thing. Extremely experimental idea. Programmable NE, which is up here, natural energy. Uh, this is something that requires a whole other story of context for. Just note that it probably won't exist, but it's an interesting concept because it turns my power system to up a notch, I guess. It makes natural energy a a force in and of itself beyond just elements. You're supposed to like use this as your mana. You're not supposed to literally use this for a power. But if I did this, this would open up the floodgates to utilizing this as its own power, meaning it goes from a purely elemental story to something a little different and more adjacent to. Well, so I'm not too upset about that, but I don't know. I wasn't necessarily flying with that idea full throttle. I definitely am just in an extremely experimental phase. But yeah, I've renamed these because I can barely pronounce pact. I have to like really say it out loud, but it's gonna sound like I say packs. Anyway, these packs, right? They are little things you can do. I will get more into this on the other side of the wall, but just know that this was my way of writing a ability into my universe to allow different elements to work with each other. A hard-coded rule on the back end, as an author, right back on my end here, is that nobody can be born with more than one element. There is only one element births. That's just how it is, right? Not a single person can be born without an element, right? There's not going to be any Astas in my universe. It's just that, you're born with an element. There's a couple of factors that go into it, but it really doesn't matter to explain that right now. All that you need to know is that everybody and their grandma can manipulate an element. And for the most part, it's all just 50-50. Two parents of different elements, it's just 50-50. Nothing more to it. Coin flip. If it's two fire parents, the child's going to be able to manipulate fire. Just like that. Boom, boom. But, yeah. I wanted an excuse to maybe cross electricity with air and create a super duper speedster. I couldn't do that because the rule said only one element per one person. But these packs allow me to create a character that, makes a pact with the air user, and then they can use that air power, combine it with their electricity, and make a super speedster. I was like, okay, I like that. This, in and of itself, is kind of its own little power system within my power system, and I hadn't necessarily figured out a way to describe it. So this was always an idea that I knew I wanted to have. I knew I was going to use it because I needed it. It would allow me to just be more creative with my characters and my powers, being able to combine and mix and match. I can just do a lot more if I can do that versus being exclusively mono elemental with every character I make. So I knew I liked these, but they existed in their own right, and I hadn't fully developed the lore behind them. And then this was a new one that I had kind of come up with, which was the idea of spirits and the idea of like a person's soul being important to the story. And that kind of leads me to the end of this, right? I was experimenting with spirits and the soul, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but I had one idea come to mind, and I loved it. But first, all of the primordial elements have a deity, and I mentioned them. So you have lunar, solar, nature, and then this one was undeveloped. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it at the time. It was just like the wind deity. And it started with this lunar energy. All it was a power system that was exclusively there to act as only a power enhancer. It wasn't its own element, right? This is not a lunar element or a solar element. This is not a nature element. This is just a power enhancer. It enhances the water element and makes it stronger. There was a whole system that I developed for it. Lunar energy was the very first one. And then I had an idea for fire. It was its own little thing. It's kind of in its own bubble. I don't have it anywhere on the wall or the other side because I don't want to talk about it. It's a very important thing that I don't even want to reveal, despite the Yap video today. Uh, but originally, this was going to be the fire deity. I didn't think about the sun. But a plot point I wanted to have was I dubbed it the Eclipsed Kings. And it's super duper important. But the fire element was supposed to combine with like lunar, and it just didn't make sense. But then I was like, why can't I just make the fire deity the sun deity, have it enhanced with solar energy, and you can cross lunar and solar energy and create eclipse energy. Now that's a really special thing. Frankly, I didn't want to say anything about it, but I don't really mind. Uh, but this is like a one-time thing, right? You're not going to cross lunar energy with nature's wrath or solar energy with nature's wrath. Like, you're not going to see what those become because they're not going to be a thing. The interaction between these two is very unique and kind of one of a kind in a way. I might come up with ideas for these, but I don't know. There's a lot of different combinations. It's all very interesting. But this one is nature's wrath, and it's just that, right? Mother Nature and like her wrath. Just a power enhancer makes you stronger. Solar energy makes you stronger. Lunar energy makes you stronger. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do for the wind element. The air element just didn't have something that felt right. What does the wind deity enhance you with? I couldn't be satisfied with any answer I came up with, and I didn't come up with any because I wasn't really able to find my creativity to figure this out. That wasn't until I experimented with spirits in the soul. And I got thinking. And as I was making a video about talking, exclusively about, hey, I have this new idea for my manga. I'm just testing out like, spirits in the soul, seeing if I like it. I had this moment of creativity where I thought about spirits. Spirits. What's one thing that I could imagine doing? Well, maybe I can summon like a spiritual animal to fight for me. Well, that feels kind of like the wind element. Wait a minute. I love summoners. Why? I don't have a summoner class. What? What am I doing? I mean, I had an idea for the water element to create like an ice armor that was really cloudy ice, and then it like you could cloud yourself in this ice armor so that way it would be indistinguishable from ice clones that look just like you, and those clones could be used as like a summon. But that was like my only summoner thing. Maybe like stone golems or whatever. But like you're not literally imbibing a spirit into the stone to make an actual living golem. You'd just be a goofball making a stone golem, right? Like it's not actually a spirit inside that. It's the user having fun and shaping a little golem, but it's still the user ultimately. It doesn't have its own will, relatively. It's not like a tamed beast. Now, let's say an earth user makes a pact with an air user. Well, maybe that golem might just have its own thing, right? But I had this little breakthrough. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Air and spirits. Great Scott, I've done it. And so that has catalysted into spirits and the soul being a part of the greater story. So incomplete ideas. We still got that, programmable stuff, natural energy, work in progress name. It's incomplete. But this over here is now spirit energy, right? So now this wind deity, they are no longer just the wind deity. They're the spirit deity. And I'm just, oh my gosh, I literally, this has had all the secret sauce I needed for the wind element. And now the fire element is my weakest link. I've got a lot of work to do in this one. But that's besides the point, right? You've got the spirits and the idea of the soul. Now, the soul as a concept for my story, that's the least developed aspect of this. But, maybe like somebody, if you have a strong soul, it's hard to tame your spirit or whatnot, right? Maybe like a, a veteranized grizzly bear would be harder to tame than like a normal bear, for instance, right? Because, it's like a tempered grizzly bear. I don't know. I'm thinking in terms of Monster Hunter here. Bear with me. Anyways, spirits of people and animals can be summoned by air. This is now a summoner class, so I would imagine being able to have a bunch of different animals, or and you can have a huge variety of different fighting styles just based off of the different animals alone and how they could be used for combat, how you can combine different animals for like different attacks. Perhaps you can have somebody who's all about, flying birds, creatures. In my universe as well, what makes this super fun and interesting beyond that is it's a fictional world, but in my universe, there's different species that can utilize elements, right? So, you know, maybe you can somehow tame the spirit of like a stone bear. I don't know, I just came up with that idea. It's kind of lame. And maybe that stone bear can like, manipulate rocks around it and create like these stone pillars that thrust up from the ground or a huge blunt impact, something like that. So I can also just have an excuse to really explore the ecology. I think that's the right word. Explore the ecology of my world. And I just look forward to that so deeply because I can just get so creative with it, right? There's a lot of ideas that I have for the water element and a bunch of different fighting styles that I've already come up with. And the earth element is no different, especially when we take into account all the different plants, all the different everything in that aspect, right? So many different fighting styles. And then air, now with that extra little seasoning, right? The spirits, now that's expanded into so many different things that I can do. And it's really fun because now it revolves around the spirit and the soul, and it turns the air element into something more than just air, which I felt was lacking in and of itself. And so now that I got the spirit aspect to it, I'm like, all right, this is it. I love it. And here we are, right? With spirit energy and all that fun stuff. So this has sparked some changes. You might notice this has changed to soul contracts. So instead of saying it's a pact, right? It's now a soul contract, and this electricity user would make a soul contract with an air user, and that's how they could become a speedster, right? I think it's cooler. It involves the soul, which is nice, so that ties in, and I think that's really fun. I also wanted to make a mention about soul contracts and their limits, right? What's their strengths, their limits? This is a very underdeveloped aspect of all this. There's a lot that needs to be worked on. I don't know how strong or how weak or the conditions to create soul contracts are. It's very underdeveloped, but it's now kind of under the soul umbrella, meaning it's no longer its own thing. It's tied to another aspect of the story, which is the soul. And I want to see what I can really do with this whole spirit and soul side. I think the soul side will be a little detached from the spirit side because spirits are definitely air and wind element, but the soul is an overall concept that's still tied to spirits, but it's still its own thing. So I'll have to explore that. Another thing was deities. Are they spirits? Are they? I don't know just yet. There's a little bit of lore that I still need to develop in that regard. So it's an interesting question that I've kind of posed for myself. Are deities a spirit? So we don't know. And then, the golden weapon spirits. Why are these spirits special? Why, why? There's a few things, a few details. This is more so kind of a personal question to me, but they're very special. They all have their own uniqueness to them, and these like golden weapons are tied to these like almost deity-like spirit animals. Like I would argue that they're kind of on the same level as deities in that regard. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to ask here about spirits and souls and deities and whatnot. This is just saying, incomplete ideas and powers, new, underdeveloped still, but it's its own little category now. So that's kind of what all this represents. And then obviously nothing changed here. Lunar energy, solar, nature's wrath, and then spirit energy. But overall, that's kind of where I'm at with my ideas. I've really expanded that with, you know, wind being more than just wind. And now I really need to develop fire, figure out a lot that I'm going to do with that, and then kind of just see where I want to go from there. Probably spend some more time developing these two, but other than that, I've got a whole new system to work with and figure out the rules of and whatnot. But that's kind of everything. So I hope this was enjoyable. Here's the build in a more 3D aspect if you want to see it, in case you were interested in any of the details. Dun, dun, dun. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, that over there, this is 00, if you're curious. I always like to mark 00 in my universe. My universe, in my Minecraft worlds, when I'm on a super flat, I like to just know where it is. I'm a big sucker for positive directions, so I like to mark where it's at, and then I just kind of know where the center of the world is. I usually avoid these 3/4 normally. Don't know why I'm mentioning that, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, introducing the whole idea of like these spirits and stuff, and the soul, and making this like a summoner class, dude. I look forward to it. Look forward to it a lot now. With that being said, though, I'm going to end that here. Woo, I made that way shorter, 27 minutes. Wow, I was a Yapatron for that previous attempt. All right, well, that's really good. Nice, I'm happy with that. My 30-minute kind of goal, I've achieved it. With that being said, that'll be everything. So, good night and good luck. Hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed my yapping. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask me. I might not reply immediately, but I will promise you nobody comments on my videos very often, so you're kind of guaranteed to get a reply. I hope you enjoyed. With that being said, though, good night and good luck. Bye bye.